To say we all need change is something that I guess we might struggle with from time to time. This idea that change is something that is necessary, that it's a part of life. I mean, I think we get that, okay? The idea that we need it sometimes I think is a little harder for us to deal with. Yesterday, my daughter had a very evil teacher, okay? I mean, evil. Because this teacher is her volleyball coach, and the volleyball coach decided that they needed to have a 7 a.m. practice on Saturday morning. Not realizing that who she hurts in doing that is not the athletes, it's the athletes' parents, okay? It's not right. It's unholy in every way, shape, and form. I pulled up about 5 till 7 in time for my daughter to walk in. The teacher was the one opening the door. I looked at my daughter, and with every intent of honesty within my heart, I said, "You tell her I am very displeased with her." Because that's just normal language that you would have an 8th grader use, that kind of thing, you know. And she looks at me like, "Are you serious?" Yes. Tell her I do not. Because it was not the way I wanted to start my Saturday morning. I mean, that's early. Rachel and I did a couple things after that we needed to do, and then I traveled, and I ended up working 3 basketball games yesterday. And then because I'm a glutton for punishment, after working those 3 basketball games, we had church league volleyball last night. And I had this just really smart idea that it'd be really great for me to go play volleyball after that. I'm not sure how much volleyball any of us actually played last night, but we did attempt to play some volleyball last night. And it was fun in the moment. But now, here's why I bring this up. When I was 20, I could have reffed 10 basketball games, gone and played volleyball until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then still wanted to go to B-dubs when it was all over. I mean, I would have thought that was awesome. Last night, we came home, we had to stick around and ref the game after ours, and so we got home about 9:30 or so last night. And I sent Caleb in, and I sent Caleb directly to let the dog out, because Rachel and Caitlin weren't home yet. He went to let the dog out. I went, took off everything that needed to go in the washer, threw it all in the washer. I grabbed 3 towels, because that's just good stewardship, right? Okay, so I grabbed 3 towels. I immediately went to the kids' bathroom. I filled the tub with as hot a water as I could possibly stand. I used 2 of those towels as pillows behind my back and head, and I just sat with my legs in as hot a water as I could possibly handle for like 30 minutes. They're asking for stuff. There's things that I did not exist for 30 minutes, and I was just in that water until I could feel my legs again. That's all I wanted. I just wanted to feel my legs. Now, here's why I say all that. Because there's a huge difference in me at 20 than me at 40. There has been change that has happened in my life. Some of those changes are awesome. 20, I didn't have a beautiful wife and 2 kids. 40, I do. I like that change. At 20, I could go all day long and not care. At 40, I can't. At 40, I need the old man bath. That's just what I need, all right? In order to get through the day. There is change that has taken place in my life. When I was younger, there were certain things that I found fun and interesting that I no longer find fun and interesting. It's not that it was wrong. There are just things about me that have changed. When I was young, I drove a Mustang. I'm telling you, I loved my Mustang. My Mustang was awesome. I got older and we drove a minivan, all right? Okay? It's change. It's just the way life is. And for many of us, we look at change as kind of this opponent in life. We get this idea that we kind of want things to be the way they are, or we want change to take care of our problems. If you talk to any parent with kids, what they really want is they want their child to change from whatever stage they're in to a better stage. You take a parent that's got a child that's in diapers. they will make a statement along the lines of, I can't wait until I never have to change another diaper. Which at face value is a great thought. The problem is when they get old enough to be working their way out of diapers, they're also old enough to talk back and have attitude. And when they were young and in diapers, there was no attitude. I mean, it may have been messy, but it was semi-cute messy. You could deal with it. Okay? And so this change that we wanted so that we could move from this stage of life to the next one carries with it a whole different set of problems. I know there's some of you, I can't wait for my children to sleep through the night and all. That is a great idea. Until then you have to start getting them up for school in the morning and they won't budge no matter what you do. I mean, there is this change that constantly happens all the way through life. Some changes we allow to happen to us, okay? Or happen to us without anything that we can do about it, okay? I cannot change my chronological age. To give you an example, Shelby, who's with us today is Shelby's birthday, okay? So if you didn't know that, make sure that you see her and give her all sorts of grief and everything this morning and all. Shelby does all sorts of things for our church that most of you never even know. She was at the office this morning at 5:30 in the morning getting things taken care of. I know because when I drove by, that's where she was. She hooks up a trailer on Sunday morning and brings it over here. And this morning, Kyle and Shelby and I unloaded a couple trailers. And she does so much for our church that most people don't even see or realize. I mean, she's a huge asset to what we do as a church. And if Shelby did not want to get older today, she has no choice. See, it's change that is put upon her that she does not get to choose. See, there's this whole area of change that is change that we do not get to choose. But then there is another area of change that we get to choose. Whenever you're making life decisions, I'm going to change my diet. Okay? I'm going to attempt to change things about my work ethic. There's a habit that I've had that I'm going to change. I'm going to stop, or I'm going to do differently, or whatever those things are. Those are changes that we get some say in. Okay? So there's one set of changes that we really don't get much say in. There's another set of changes that we get say in. I want to look today, if we could, at Matthew chapter 16. Because there's something really remarkable that Jesus does here in the book of Matthew when he's talking to his disciples. He's talking about change, okay? He's talking about things being different. And the reality is that this thing is going to be different regardless of what the disciples choose to do with this new information. But he also gives them the opportunity to have impact, to have part of this change that is going to take place be something that they can own, something that they can be a part of in the kingdom of God. Matthew chapter 16, verse 13. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they say, well, some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. Okay? And he says, okay, fine. That's what other people say. Who do you say that I am? So Simon Peter steps up and he makes this statement. He gives an answer to Jesus that is absolutely remarkable. It signals huge change. You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And Jesus responded, Simon, son of Jonah, you are blessed because flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I also say to you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the forces of Hades will not overpower it. Now, for those of us who may have grown up with this story, okay, may have heard this growing up, it's just like, okay, well, this is just another interaction between Jesus and Peter, okay? This is just it's another story. It's another interaction here. maybe you've never heard about this conversation before, and on face value, it just seems, okay, who do you think I am? I mean, many of us today understand that Christianity believes that Jesus is the Messiah, the one who was sent to save us from our sin, to provide the way to bring back into connection God and His creation. But at this time, in this moment, this was massive change. The Israelites, the Jewish people, had been looking for generations at the one who was to come, the promised Messiah. They've been looking for him, and every great prophet that came along, is he the one? Is Isaiah the one? Is Elijah the one? And they would just keep going on and on. Is David, the great king, is he the one? On and on and on throughout generation after generation after generation, there is this constant looking for the Messiah. And here's what happens. If you have an expectation, you begin to take and impart your ideas, your thoughts, your perceptions on what that expectation is. So for instance, if you call somebody up about a meeting that you need to set up, okay, and they talk lower than James Earl Jones, all right? You know, big, deep, booming voice. And you hear this just, incredibly manly voice, and you say, hey, you know what? We're going to meet at Starbucks, 2 o'clock tomorrow. We'll take care of this stuff, right? So if you walk into Starbucks, okay, and you see a lady sitting at one table, you see a big, huge linebacker-looking dude sitting at a table, and you see a scrawny little runt sitting over at another table, most likely, who are you going to go choose to talk to? Big linebacker dude. That's right. Okay? Because that's part of the perception that we have given. Okay? The influence of our ideas and thoughts is, well, if that's what they sounded like, this must be what they looked like. Cracked me up when I was in college. I was part of a quartet. I know, you knew I was cool, right? Okay. So I was part of a quartet when I was in college, and I was the tallest and the biggest. And then the next guy was about 3 inches shorter than me. Guy after him was about 3 inches shorter, and the guy on the end was this little tiny dude, about Kindle size right here, He was 20, so it's tiny for 20, right? Okay? So this is the way it was stacked up. But the funny thing is that I was the biggest and the tallest and sang the highest. And as it went down, it got lower. And so the guy here, the little shrimpy guy on the end, was our bass that could belt out these big, huge, low notes. See, perception was so great. In fact, there are people that would watch us sing, and if they just heard all four of us sing at the same time, they just assumed the guy on the end was the high tenor. Until there was a tenor solo or a bass solo, and all of a sudden, they're looking at one of us expecting to see us sing, and it's the guy over here. Perception changes, okay? Expectations are different because of our perception. So these people who have been looking for this promised Messiah for all of this time, they are looking for something specific based on their expectations, based on their perceptions of what should be happening. If it's somebody who is going to rescue God's people, then it must be a military leader. It must be someone who can overthrow the Roman government. Maybe it's a political change. Maybe it's somebody who's going to rise up and be incredibly influential and wealthy and be able to make a difference in the culture in which that they are. But instead, Jesus comes in the most humblest of ways. We talked about just a few weeks ago as this tiny baby in the most unglorified situation ever, in this nasty, smelly stable. It is not what people expected. People didn't expect the Messiah to just be some rabbi with a bunch of followers from Galilee who really picked up the guys that nobody else wanted. These weren't the guys that the other rabbis wanted as their followers. These are the guys that hadn't gotten picked. It's like lining up for dodgeball at recess. And everybody gets picked, and there's still like 6 guys over in the corner that, we don't even want you on the team. Like, you're not even good to use as a human shield. right? Okay? And that's who Jesus goes and picks to be part of his crew. Here in this moment, Jesus looks at them and says, who do people say that I am? Well, people think you're a really great guy. They think you're like the great prophets. They think you're a great teacher. Okay, fine. Who do you say that I am? Simon Peter jumps up and says, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Now here's why that's such a huge statement. Because in that moment, Simon Peter is all in. In that moment, Simon Peter has declared his allegiance. He has decided, this is who I'm following. This is who I believe. This is what I think. I have a friend of mine today, posted on Facebook this morning, because that's how you find out about the world, right? It's by checking your Facebook feed in the morning. And this is what he said. He said, I have two teams that I want to win today. He said, I want the Arizona Cardinals and the Denver Broncos to win today. To which I was kind of excited about that, because those are the teams that I would like to be in the Super Bowl. That's kind of a win-win for me. Thinking that's awesome. Okay? But then he went on in his Facebook post to say, but I think Carolina and the Patriots are going to win. He said, so I guess I'm just for everybody. I'm like, that is the most idiotic thing I have ever read in my entire life. What he's trying to do is set himself up so that he doesn't have a chance to fail. He doesn't have a chance to lose. Well, if I kind of root for everybody, then it's okay. But that's not the way it works. Either we believe that Jesus is the Messiah or he's not. And if we believe that Jesus is the Messiah, there is a change that happens to every aspect of our life. Now, he goes on and Jesus says, now look, your name is now Peter, not just Simon Peter, okay? It's not just part of your surname. You are Peter, which means rock, okay? A lot of us are familiar with that. He said, and upon this rock, okay, upon this, I will build my church. I will build my kingdom. Now, here's what you need to know. He was not saying on Peter, okay? There are people that, think, well, this is why, Peter was considered a pope and all this other thing. No. He wasn't talking about building it on Peter. He was talking about building it on what Peter said. Peter acknowledged, Peter confessed that Jesus was the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Jesus says, look, that is what my church will be built on. Now, here's why that's really significant. Because he didn't say Jerusalem. That's where I'll build my church. Judea. That's where I'll build my church. He didn't give a location. Now that is so foreign for many of us. To this day, people will ask me, hey, where's your church? And so I laughingly say, all over Kankakee County. And they look at me like I have two heads. No, really, where's your church? All over Kankakee County. And they give me one of these looks. I said, yeah, our church is our people. And they live, we got people all over Kankakee County that are part of our church. They're like, no, we mean, where do you meet? I said, okay, now that's a very different question. Because a church is not where we meet. A church is a body of believers that God has brought together in order to live out his purpose in their life. But what happened was when we Romanized the world, okay, when that began to happen, there was this idea that if you have this central institutionalized location, that becomes the representation of the church. It wasn't until multiple generations after Jesus that people began identifying the church with a location rather than the people. And so when he's talking to Peter, he's not talking about where he's going to build a building. He's not talking about where an institution is going to be set up. He's talking about this idea that those who believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of the living God, that is where the church is built. That is a huge change from where many of us have come from. It's a huge change from where many of us grew up. We're going to show a picture up here that has to do with change that's going to take place for us. Last Sunday, we asked you guys to be praying because we said that we had put in just a ridiculously low bid on a potential facility for our church. I will tell you that the bid we put in was over $60,000 less than what was being asked for the property. That property had already had its asking price significantly dropped before that. So we ended up asking a lot of money less than what they originally wanted for the building. And by a lot of money, like I could go buy a really nice house for a lot of money less than what they were asking for that property. And we knew that the offer we were making was not realistic. Okay? If I'm just looking at X's and O's, I'm looking at numbers and all that kind of stuff that's out here, I'm looking in black and white at what should work, it was not a reasonable offer. If I'm talking about rationalizing something. But we know that God can work miracles. We believe that He is working in and through the life of our church. We felt like this was a step He wanted us to take. We felt like this was a change that He desired for our congregation, for our church. So we made that offer, and we asked you to be praying that God would work a miracle. We got a call back Tuesday, which was excruciating because I was expecting the call on Monday. So I was a wreck for a couple days, did not sleep well, which may say something about my trust level. I don't know, but I just was, kind of leading things. I felt responsibility and all that kind of stuff. And so waiting on that phone call. And on Tuesday, we got a phone call where they had countered our offer. And the counter was for a reasonable, still better than reasonable amount of money. But the agent called back and said, hey, I think they'll take about $2,500 or a little bit more less than what their counter offer was. Okay. So I was jokingly talking around with Kyle, said, we really do need a computer because the one back there freezes every single week and all that kind of stuff. So wouldn't it be cool if we can kind of work that money? So I said, let's offer $6,000 less than what, so that if they come up somewhere, we've still maybe gained an extra $1,000 or, $2,000 or whatever it is. I got a call back within 30 minutes. They accepted that offer at $6,000 less than what their counter offer was. So late Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere in there, we went and actually signed a conditional contract on this facility for our church. Now, I say that to you for a couple reasons. One, thank you for praying. Because as far as I'm concerned, that was God working a miracle. For us to get that facility for the amount of money that we got it for was miraculous. And God worked all sorts of little miracles leading up to it. We needed to have an offer in at a certain time. And to get that offer in, we had to have a roofing estimate. And it just so happens that John Thill has a buddy that does roofing. And so he called him up. So immediately they went out to go take a look at it. And the guy said, hey, you need this pretty soon? I said, yeah. It's like, well, I'll get it to you in a day or two. And I looked at him and said, well, I really need it this afternoon. And he just went out to look at the property at like 10:30, something like that morning. And I'm asking him to do something just ridiculous. And he goes, you'll have it by 2:00. And I had it by 1:30. If you know roofers and contractors, that's a miracle, all right? We had a plumber come out and take a look at things that needed to be happening. We had to have an estimate for that. That plumber didn't come until 2:00. And we had to have everything turned in by 6:00 that day. I said, I know this can't happen. I said, is there any way you could do an estimate today? He's like, well, the person that does the estimates is out of the office. He did some thinking. He goes, hey, but our office manager is there. And I bet the office manager could run the estimate. And by 5:30 by 5 o'clock really that afternoon, we had that estimate in hand. As far as I'm concerned, that's a miracle. The fact that they took so much less money than what they were originally asking for was just, in my eyes, miraculous. And so, thank you for praying. Thank you for seeking God in His direction, asking Him to lead and guide us. Now, here's what this means for us as a church. Number one, it means change. It does. So what in the world does this have to do with this passage in Matthew? Well, it's really simple. That building is not the church. That building looks like a church building, which has positives and negatives to it. And you guys know that, you get that. But that building at 2861 Waldron Road in Kankakee is not the church. It is a facility. It is a tool that God has given us to give us the opportunity to live out being the church, which is a body of believers who believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of the living God, the one who has the ability to make the greatest impact on our world that it could ever know. That is the church. And if we walk into a facility, if we walk into a building thinking, oh man, this is great, now we've got church, then we have missed the boat. Because folks, we have had church for a long time. We have been the church for a long time. One of the things that we were a little bit nervous about as we walked through all this, we had a couple different facilities we were looking at. In fact, some of you know we actually showed many of you one of those other facilities. And that facility would have done some very neat things for us. The issue is that facility would have taken us probably 6 months at the minimum for us to be able to get into after we took possession of it. There were just lots of things that needed to be done. This facility, believe it or not, needs a new roof. It needs some boiler issues. It needs some other things like that. But on the interior, aside from cleaning and redecorating and doing some stuff with sound and audio and all that kind of stuff in the worship space and all, we believe we will be able to use this facility very quickly. So here's our plan. Our plan is, as part of the change that God is leading us to as a congregation, as we take our next step in our journey of faith corporately, we will be hopefully taking possession of this facility on February 29th. Easy for me to remember, it's Leap Day, all right? I asked the lender if that meant that we only had to make a payment once every 4 years, and he didn't go for that, all right? But I thought it was worth a shot, right? I mean, God's worked miracles up to this point, why not go a little further? And so we'll take possession on February 29th, which means that week, whatever time you are available, we will be setting up crews to go in and start cleaning and clearing out things that are in that space. We will then begin moving things in very quickly, which means that for a couple, 3 weeks, some things will be different than normal. And we haven't made final decisions on that because part of it depends on when some of the work will get done and things like that. It could be that we'll meet here for a couple weeks, but it'll be a very acoustic kind of thing where we'll set up some folding chairs and not be able to do everything else because a lot of this will be moved in to help get ready for the new facility. It could mean that we do some worship and work days. We've talked about that, where we go over and kind of do that acoustic kind of feel over there and all, but all show up in our grubbies ready to go to work and help get things done. Either way, it's kind of exciting as we experience the steps of this change that God is walking us through. Our hope, if we take possession on the 29th, is that on March 20th, which is Palm Sunday, that we could have a family worship service. Our idea being that all those that are already a part of Journey, already a part of what we're doing as a church, that we could meet there and have a service along the lines of what we do. be the opportunity to kind of have a test run of things and make sure that all the sound works and everything else and that kind of stuff. That's our hope. Where it won't be real fancy, we won't be inviting a lot of folks that day because there could be like 1,000 things go wrong the first time we try to make it all work. But we want to do that in preparation for March 27th, which is Easter Sunday this year. And it is our hope that if everything falls in line the way that we think that it might, that we could have our grand opening to the community, that we invite all our friends and neighbors and everybody else on March 27th to a grand opening of a facility that our church will be using. Not to the opening of a church, but the opening of a facility that Journey Church will use as a tool to help reach people with the good news of Jesus Christ. Now, when we were going through all these plans and looking at it, that date kept sticking in my head in just an odd way, and I could not figure it out until we went out to the garage one day, and we have band rehearsal out in the garage. We got it set up to where we kind of have this space. We'll do that. We got drums out there and the whole bit. Our neighbors love us. And so we've got all set up. And I have a couple knick-knack kind of things on a little shelf over on the side. And one of them was this. It's the grand opening flyer that we used when we first started Journey Church. Now, I don't know if you can read that from where you're at, but the date at the top of that is 3/27/11. Almost 5 years ago, when God began doing a change in some of our hearts. Some of you were with us on that day. And for me, that was a special, neat day as God was moving us towards something brand new. And so our church officially started on 3/27/11. 5 years to the day, one of the changes that God is bringing us to, one of the steps that we are taking, is that on 3/27/16, our church that began back on 3/27/11 will have a new facility to be able to use to help us take that message that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of the living God, to those around us. To me, that is not coincidence. To me, that is part of the plan that God has had in place for our church. And there are times over the last few years where we have gone, God, why haven't you done something for us yet? I mean, you guys know I'm impatient, okay? If it didn't happen yesterday, it hasn't happened soon enough yet. And there were times these last couple of years I'm like, God, what is going on? And what is going on? And to me, this has just been confirmation that He has had a plan all along for us. And this is part of our change. So then what does this mean for us as a church? Well, here's my challenge to us today. We're going to be talking about some changes over these next few weeks that are necessary for us as we take this next step as a church. But if we really want to make an impact in our own lives, if we want to see God work in us individually, if we want to see God impact our families, if we want to see God impact our co-workers and our fellow students and our friends and all those that are around us, if we want to see that happen, then we have to put more effort and energy into being the church than we put into readying a building. And this is how I know that. If you're going to have a party at your house, it doesn't matter how beautifully decorated your home is. Doesn't matter how great the food is that you've prepared. It doesn't matter that there are comfortable places for everybody to sit and an incredibly welcoming atmosphere for people when they come if you don't invite anybody to the party. And as a church, we need now to be working towards 3/27/16. Who are the people that we need to be the church with? Who do we need to be inviting? Who do we need to be connecting with? So that as God provides us this tool to be able to use this facility, that we'll be able to use that not just for our own enjoyment, not just so that Shelby doesn't have to get up on her birthday and unload trailers, but so that we might help see people find Jesus and know that he is the Messiah, the Son of the living God. God, we come to you this morning, and God, my prayer is that right now you would speak to each one of us individually. That God, you would lay 2 or 3 people on our hearts, of people that we need to be connecting with now. God, as you put this facility in our hands, God, as we take steps over the next few weeks, as we look at how we can work to help ready the facility, God, as we look at how we can give both financially and of our effort and energy to make this facility a reality. God, I pray that you would remind us that that effort is secondary to the primary purpose of the church, which is to go, therefore, everywhere, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, the uttermost ends of the earth, sharing the good news of Jesus Christ with everyone that we come into contact with. God, I pray that we would not let a facility distract us from being the church. God, your church is not an address. Your church is not a location. Your church is not a building. Your church is us. God, I pray that we would be a faithful church, that you could continue to build your kingdom on. God, I pray that we would make those connections over these coming days and weeks so that we might continue to see you do miraculous things in our midst. And I pray it all in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks for being with us today. I'm excited about the change that God's bringing about. I can't wait to see how we all get to be a part of it. And we'll be sharing lots of information with you as things happen. But it's an exciting time. And thanks for being a part of it. See you back next Sunday.